Hey everybody, Howard Gearhauser here alongside my dad, Dr. G. In today's video episode, we wanted to talk about this interesting article that my dad came across that's looking at statistics of smokers and their prevalence or likelihood of getting the coronavirus compared to someone who doesn't smoke. Now, most of you know that we're not pro smoking, but this is an interesting finding that smoking could link to lower chances of getting coronavirus. And we have mentioned nicotine being a possible biohack in the past. So we wanted to explore this a little deeper and give you our perspective on this article. So could you explain a little bit more about what's going on?
Yeah, so there were a couple of reports that were published, and the first one was in March. It came out of China, and so they took, I believe it was 1,000 patients. So they took 1,000 patients that had COVID-19, meaning they're sick. So this isn't the asymptomatic people or anything like that. So these are people that are sick, and I believe it was people that were so sick that they needed to be admitted to the hospital. So out of those 1,000, they found that about 12.5% were smokers. But if you look at the percentage of smokers in the Chinese population, it's more than double that. It's 28%. So this is kind of, holy smokes. You know, smoking supposedly damages your lungs, and leads to inflammation in your lungs. And inflammation is part of, what causes COVID-19 and causes the serious disease and possibly death. And here's something that would be totally against what you would expect, that it appears that if you smoke, just looking at these basic statistics, that it would cut your risk of getting really sick, which is the most important thing for an individual, is that, hey, I don't want to be hospitalized or die, have to go through all that it cut your risk, if there's not some other factor that they don't observe. It's not the same as doing a study on this, but it cut your risk by more than half, significantly more than half, cut your risk, just smoking. Okay? Totally counterintuitive, because we would have expected, everyone expects smokers, well, they're going to get more serious COVID-19 than a non-smoker. So what this is saying is smoking protects you, just on the surface. Smoking protects you. And we saw that. And that's one of the reasons why I had recommended nicotine as a possible biohack in one of our earlier videos, maybe chewing the gum. And nicotine can be addictive. So I'm not recommending go out and start doing nicotine, because you might be the person that gets addicted to it. But I've written full articles about nicotine, and it does have some cognitive benefits and possibly some other benefits. So nicotine, I'm not telling you to use it, but we recommend it as something, a biohack that you might consider if you wanted to stave off COVID-19 on a theoretical basis. Relatively harmless, but you could become addicted. So that's my disclaimer. So we recommended that, not really having a mechanism. And then another report came out, okay? And this was just recently. So this was from France. So another report with the same result. What they saw was the numbers of people that get hospitalized, the percentage of that number that were smokers was very small, way less than the prevalence of smoking in the population in France. Same result, a dramatic reduction of COVID-19 if you smoke. Smoking protection. So this was powerful enough that this French group of scientists or practitioners did a study. They go, hey, we got to study this. So they got nicotine patches, which is one way to administer nicotine. And they are doing a study, putting people that are really sick with COVID-19 on the patches, and also putting healthcare workers on the patches who have a higher risk because of the exposure to the sick patients, putting them on patches to see if they are indeed protected from serious disease. Now, we don't know, does smoking prevent it, or not smoking, but nicotine? Well, we don't know which it is. It's a theory that nicotine is the active agent. There's other things in tobacco smoke. There's tars, which theoretically are one of the things that lead to cancer, and there's increases your carbon monoxide. There's a lot of different things in smoking that might, unexpectedly prevent or treat COVID-19. So first step is, it's easy. Nicotine's relatively benign. It's why they'll slap a patch on a healthcare worker, informed consent, slap a patch on a person sick with COVID-19, say, hey, we need to do a study on this. It might help you sign your life away and do the study. So those studies are in progress. It'll be interesting to see how they turn out. Now, I decided for myself personally, and I don't recommend anybody follow what I say unless they do their due diligence, but I have decided to use nicotine drops during this viral outbreak, partly because I use them anyway, but also because of these reports that, wow, it might have a profound reduction in your risk of getting this disease, although maybe it's smoking that does it. Now, that's a whole nother topic.
We know smoking is helping. We can connect those two dots. So maybe pick up smoking too, if you really want to reduce your risk. Just kidding, of course.
Well, smoking is something that smoking our modern cigarettes with the processed papers and the processed filters and the processing of the tobacco itself, a lot of chemicals in there, could be part of the problem. It could be that if we smoked organic tobacco, with maybe without the paper. I mean, I know oral tobacco also increases, like chew or snuff and those kind of things, increases the risk of cancers, in the mouth or throat. But those tobaccos are also processed with chemicals. It would be interesting. It would be the scientific correct thing to do to separate the two. And that's what they should do. They say red meat is bad, but they don't separate the factory farmed red meat from an organic pasture raised animals. They don't, science doesn't think that's an important enough question, even though to me, that's the first question that comes to my mind. It's like, well, you say red meat is bad and you're talking, about a confinement raised animal is given antibiotics and hormones and God knows what else, the genetically modified food that contains the glyphosate and other chemicals, the pesticides, and all these things, whereas you could take an organic grass-fed animal that lives like a wild animal and compare those two. And there have been studies that have looked at that on a small scale because there's not a deep enough pocket around this issue to do a really large clinical trial, but small one showed that yes, if you eat red meat from that kind of situation, it doesn't increase your risk of anything. So, some of the studies show increased risk of increased mortality, increased cancer, increased heart attacks in red meat eaters versus people who eat less or no red meat. But even with that, the difference is small, and we've talked about that before.
Yeah, and it's kind of similar to with tobacco products. If you grew your own tobacco, in your own garden or farm, or bought it organic from a local farmer, that's probably a much different plant than what they're using in the, big cigarette companies. So it's just something to consider. Are we even talking about the same thing? Like you mentioned with the red meat, the red meat from a factory farm operation is not, in my opinion, even the same product as something that maybe you go and harvest yourself out in nature or get from the farmer's market. So we maybe should stop even calling them the same thing, because that way we can all understand where we truly stand with, meat eating, smoking. We're comparing apples and oranges in some cases. Is there anything you wanted to add about this particular article, or do you want to sign off on that?
Well, the nicotine comes in the patches and the gum, and then you can also get drops. And again, there's like gum has probably got some chemicals in there. So, I'd always read the label, and if it looks like a page of an encyclopedia, that's maybe a sign that maybe I shouldn't put this in my body. It's got 47 things that I cannot pronounce. Maybe this is not something that comes from nature.
Yeah, and make sure to go check out that other video we did on nicotine too, because we dive deeper into that mechanism if you're interested. But I think we've run pretty long on this one. Feel free to go browse our other videos. We've been doing a video a day, so we have a lot of content already here in 2020. And we'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks, Dad.
Thanks.